Hey guys, Ryan here. Welcome to this week's video blog. I'm going to talk a little bit about predictability. And so I'm going to show you some fish we caught. Here we go. 3 amazing redfish and trout. Captain Brian Sanders. Say hey, Brian.
What up?
That was a dope day.
Dope.
Excuse me. So that was it. So I wanted to give you guys a quick little talk about predictability. And a lot of folks, in the contracting industry that I deal with, struggle an awful lot with unpredictability. And so what I find is that I like to tell stories and link up messages and bring metaphors. And so I'll tell you that I fish with Captain Brian about every month and a half or 2 or so. And I tell you, every single time we go fishing, we catch fish every time. And today, as I was thinking about the different variables of why I can predict that we're going to catch certain fish, we started to dig into it, and it felt very similar to the contracting space. And I'll tell you how that looks. So there's a few conditions initially that we always look at that are going to be factors into whether we're going to catch fish. And a lot of people go out and they don't catch any fish, right? And they try, but they just never catch anything. And then oftentimes they never had a shot at catching fish in the first place. And so I was asking Brian, what are some initial conditions and some variables that we can control that will help support the ability to get fish? And so I'm gonna hang out on my Jeep here. And what he said was, well, you got the moon phase. So if you have a certain moon phase, that's gonna affect the tides. You got the wind, which you can't necessarily predict, but you can look at the wind and how that'll affect your day. And then of course, you have the tide, so high tide, low tide. And so you look at those variables, and let's pretend he's going to work within those on a good day. What's the next variable? Well, it's got your bait and then your fish. Your skills. So if you think about that, you look at all those variables, this guy's the best. He's the best in a place called Chokoloskee. I'm fishing in all the way in the southwest part of Florida. It's a couple hours drive from where I live. And we always catch fish. This guy is the best. And so when you look at those variables and they add up, you add up those 5 variables, it equals fish. Well, there's a lot of variables with your business that you can control that if you focus on those factors that you can control, you get more business. For example, one of the mistakes that I see contractors face all the time that affects their predictability is what kind of environment they're playing as it relates to, are they going after storm events? So that's something that's very difficult to predict. And new construction, which is affected by the economy. And so if you look at those 2 variables, you're looking at something that's unpredictable. I was talking with a contractor who was sharing and expressing with his storm model last week that he doesn't have a lot of predictability. In fact, a venture capital group who we entertained to buy the business because he was excited about it and thought he would do something else, wanted to offer him $15 million for his business. But because he had one bad month that didn't, continue to go upwards, and it went dip because he didn't have predictable model in place, they offered him, oh no, well, we can't do 15 million. We're going to go down to 5.5. And he's like, man, I work way too hard and put way too much energy and have done so to be devalued like that. And so if you think about predictability, there's a lot of value in consistent revenue. And so a couple of the things that I teach often in order to get more predictability is first, play in the right environment and go after B2B accounts or high-end B2C that are built on relationships in a local market, and build those relationships so that you can do repairs and restore, replace, people's buildings, rather than waiting for an event or hoping that people are going to continue to build new construction, because they're always going to be there. All those clients are always going to need to repair and replace existing buildings. And that's a matter of fact given. You're going to have to always, fix those. They're always going to have to do that. So you have to live in there. Secondly, is having a predictable, steady, consistent sales process that is supportive of selling value, building relationship, being consultative, and not being a low bid, just price game. And so, folks who do a good job there are able to control the outcome a whole lot more. And then also having a plan. I think a lot of contractors' plans are, let me get as much work as I can this year and then do as much work as I can this year and make some money. And so they don't back in and reverse engineer how they're going to do the daily activities and support their outputs that they're hoping for. They're just kind of just guessing, right? They're amateurs and they're not doing a great job. And I'm not saying that people are making a lot of money doing new construction and storm chasing, but if you want a predictable business that's stable and that's going to retain clients, retain talent, and give you the ability to have higher margin work on a consistent basis, you need to do what I'm talking about. If you don't, then you're going to have a lot of unknowns. You're going to go to sleep at night wondering, am I going to have to let all these crews go, or even subs that you built great relationships with, that they're not going to be able to count on you to provide them work and do great work for you. And so that's a huge variable that people struggle with often. And then, not knowing your weaknesses. So today, we tried to go after snapper, but we didn't get any snapper. And that was a weakness of his. And we only did it to develop that because we crushed it on the redfish. We caught about 20 redfish and we were only able to keep 3 because of the limit. And we did great there. And then we caught some great snook, which we can't keep, it's out of season. And then we caught some trout. And those are things that he's really great with, but he has weaknesses. A lot of people in sales and estimating and contracting, they don't even know what their weaknesses are and they wonder why they can't predict anything. Let me tell you, if you have somebody who doesn't have skills to predict and really forecast consistently what their sales are, you're really only as good as your environment. So what that means is hopefully you have a good lead who really has a lot of need. Hopefully you get a referral that comes in. However, when you have a skill of sales, and people are doing that, they're able to sell consultatively, pre-qualify, and then fully qualify, get with the actual decision makers, understand if they could spend more, get all that value understood beforehand, get a timeline and get agreement for next steps. And when you have salespeople who can do that, they can tell you what their monthly and quarterly sales are going to be consistently. And my best clients are able to be like me, going with Captain Brian Sanders and say, we're going to catch fish today. I know we're going to do that because we have the variables put together plus the skill of being the best. If you put his skill in an unpredictable environment, then he's not going to do that great. He may be okay, or you could put somebody with no skills in this environment, have all the stars aligned and not catch any fish. So when we're out there fishing for business and hunting for business, also, what about your bait? Do you guys have good bait? Do you have a good positioning statement? Do you have good branding? Do you catch people's attention? And so when you do these variables consistently, you're able to predict and get off of that unknown roller coaster ride that turns left, turns right, jerks left, jerks right. Now you want to puke and you say, can I get off this thing? Let me hope for a good coast and hope for a good month. Rather than having confidence, certainty, and know what your future looks like, and that is predictability. So think about those variables, just like catching fish. Are you playing in an environment that's always going to be there? Service, repair, replacement type of relationships. Boom. Do you have goals and a game plan? Do you have something that can reverse engineer and support the daily behaviors that build that type of success? And then, do you have the right mindset and understand your weaknesses and have a good sales process and do that consistently so that you can, support predictable outcomes? So that's what I got to share today. If you have any questions on how do I get more predictability, or tell me a little bit more about that, and you want to set up a call, simply just message me and we'll set up a call. Because I know that contractors who start bringing these elements into place and start sticking to them and with a ton of discipline, with the right skills and the right mindset, the right energy, they're able to win year over year predictably and start growing. And I could tell you that contractor, if he had a model where he was predicting the future and did that, that venture capital firm was going to offer a lot of money. Why? Because they know that revenue is getting bought and it's going to be consistent and it's going to be more valuable. And so for you, it could be that, it could be passing it down to your children or selling to your employees. All that valuation comes in place when you have predictability. So anyhow, that is what I got to share today. Go from unpredictability to predictability and have a lot of fun doing it. And if you want more information, just holler. All right, guys, have a good week. Later.